America's food supply is not out of the woods just yet. After the president's executive order, more workers at meatpacking plants are reportedly getting sick. Now the fish industry also getting hit tonight. Rich Wheeler is the founder of 60 North Seafoods. It's a fish processing facility in Alaska. Jerry Mande back with us tonight. He's professor of nutrition science and policy at Tufts University. He's a former undersecretary for food safety. Gentlemen, good to have you with us. Rich, I'll begin with you. Tell me what you're seeing, what you're dealing with up in Alaska tonight.
Okay, so we came in great. First of all, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And so we came in April 24th with my crew and staff, all quarantining together in Cordova. And then we did our two-week quarantine, and then from there, subsequently brought in, probably another 5 employees, and then taking advantage of the services down in the lower 48 and having them tested before they get here, and then having them tested again. And we've had no incidents of infection here.
Wow, so you haven't had anybody get sick. Can you give me an idea of how many people are on a ship at a given time and how long you are out at sea?
So I'm on a land-based processor, and so we have right now about 22 employees working for us. So, you know, the uniqueness of Cordova, Alaska is our isolation. So the only way in is by boat and plane. The ferry system has been down since, I think, September 12th. And so really the only way in, during the winter months is by plane for the most part. And so it's pretty isolated at this point.
Yeah, Jerry, we haven't heard very much, I have to say, about the meatpacking business in a few weeks. How are things going? Are we getting any better?
Well, I think we're getting better on the supply of meat. The interruptions that we were seeing before have gotten better. There are fewer of those. But in terms of the workers, things have not gotten better. We're now up to 20,000 cases and 90 deaths.
Do you anticipate that we're going to have to shut down meat processing plants once again? We're already hearing about cases. I was reading about some cases in Utah and elsewhere.
Well, the federal government, led by the president, put out an executive order using the Defense Production Act saying that meat plants should stay open. But what was not coupled with policies by the USDA and its Food Safety Inspection Service, CDC, OSHA. They put out guidance, but they've still not put out requirements to make those workplaces safe. So workplaces will stay open, but people will continue to get sick, and there will be deaths.
What about the issue of prices? We've been dealing with some elevated prices when it comes to meat. Where are we in terms of that tonight? There
have been some increases, more than usual in food across the board, but I don't think there have been increases in meat beyond those we're seeing with other food right now.
Yeah. Rich, how concerned are you about the virus? No cases, you say, yet, which is obviously a great thing. How much trepidation do you have that the virus is eventually going to find its way to where you are in Alaska and to some of the fishermen that you rely on?
So first, I'll touch on the price. For one, there's a tremendous amount of overhead that's going into, the mitigation of trying to keep this virus out of Cordova and out of our industry. So, we haven't, the price might be slightly elevated, from normal, but I am concerned, and we're doing our part to, help, maintain quarantine policy and good health practices and everything else.
What about, friends of yours that you have around the area there? Are they experiencing a spike in cases? Any increase, anything that we need to be worried about?
No, not maybe over maybe on the mainland, but not in Cordova. We had what we've seen is one case come into town. The company that had the worker was quickly isolated, and proper procedure was followed, and therefore no incidents were after that. So the systems in play are working really well.
Jerry, you touched on something interesting. Obviously, the Defense Production Act, the president mandating that these plants have to stay open. There certainly doesn't seem to be the wherewithal or the political wherewithal at minimum to go back and shut these places down. There was a conversation I was just having with Dr. Scott Gottlieb regarding the spikes in cases that we're seeing in places like Texas, for example, and his advice that maybe some of these businesses that have reopened need to go back and shut down for a short period of time. Do you think there's the wherewithal tonight because you are still seeing these cases pop up, as you said, to go back and shut them down?
Well, I think the goal from the beginning is to maintain our food supply. One of the most essential things, obviously, that we need is a strong food chain. And so these are facilities, unlike the rest of the country, other businesses that did shut down, they've tried to stay open throughout so people have enough to eat. The Defense Production Act sort of demands that they stay open. When they have closed, it's because so many workers have gotten sick that they're not able to maintain being open. I think that the plants, their incentive through the market is to keep the chain open, keep prices relatively low, but they need help from the government in terms of keeping their workers safe. They haven't gotten that so far. They got an order to stay open, but the reason they're closing is because people are getting sick. What we don't have is a standard by OSHA, by CDC, by the Food Safety Inspection Service. They need to put out a standard that can be enforced that will help those plants keep safe. It's something they do all the time. It's interesting. They're dealing with infectious disease in terms of meat safety. There isn't a meat safety problem here, but there is a worker safety and there is an infectious disease problem. CDC, FDA, FSIS know how to solve those types of problems. They just haven't tried to do it here.